I met Julia when we were both still broke. She was working the front desk at a co-working space in Manhattan, underpaid, overlooked, always rushing back from the coffee machine to buzz someone in. I was renting a small desk in the corner by the window, trying to get my consulting firm off the ground. Back then, I had no clients. Just a pitch deck, some contacts from my MBA program, and a credit card that was almost maxed out. Julia stood out. Not because she was loud or flashy, just the opposite. She was focused. Calm. The kind of woman who looked you in the eye when you spoke and made you feel like what you were saying actually mattered. She remembered people's names. She knew what kind of tea they liked, what days they looked stressed, and who was pretending not to be. We didn't date right away. I was too busy grinding, and she had just gotten out of something messy. But we talked, after hours, on lunch breaks, in the elevator when everyone else had left. I used to find reasons to walk past her desk just to see what book she was reading. She had this quiet confidence about her, like she didn't need the world to applaud her choices. When I landed my first big contract, 7 months after I moved into that building, I asked her out. Not over email. Not with some clever joke. I just asked. She smiled and said, "Took you long enough." We moved in together 6 months later, and got married a year after that. It was a courthouse wedding, just us, a couple friends, and a dinner afterward at a steakhouse we couldn't really afford. I didn't care. Neither did she. We were happy. The business took off fast. Faster than I expected. 1 client turned into 5. 5 turned into a team. I brought on analysts, designers, legal, HR. Within 3 years we had a full floor in a building uptown. I named the company after my father, an old-school immigrant who ran a deli for 30 years and never once took a vacation. He would have laughed at the marble floors and glass offices. He would have hated the espresso machine. But I think, deep down, he would have been proud. Julia was there for all of it. The late nights, the investor calls, the rebranding panic before our series a close. She was smart in ways that didn't always show up on paper, sharp instincts, great with people, always the one to spot when someone was bluffing. She didn't work for the company, but she was part of it. Everyone knew her. Everyone liked her. She hosted our team dinners, picked out the art in the conference rooms, sat in on brainstorms when I asked. We bought a house in Westchester. A ridiculous house. High ceilings, glass everything, a garden we never used. It was more than we needed, but Julia said it felt like we earned it. And I agreed. We weren't perfect, but we were a team. We had money, momentum, and something that looked a lot like the kind of life people only pretend to have online. There's something surreal about watching people treat your name like a brand. That started happening after our 4th year in business. Clients didn't just hire us for strategy, they hired me. They wanted my voice in the room. My direction on the whiteboard. My signature at the bottom of the proposal. The company became shorthand in certain circles, tight-lipped hedge funds, aggressive tech firms, a few global names that liked to move in silence. We weren't the flashiest firm out there, but we were efficient. Lean. Brutal when we needed to be. I ran the place like I ran my life, decisive, fast, forward-facing. My partners followed that lead. So did our employees. It became a culture, no nonsense, no babysitting, no weak links. Julia thrived in that world. Even though she didn't technically work for us, she was everywhere. She came to team off-sites. She reviewed pitch decks on the couch next to me. She spotted holes in executive summaries that my analysts missed. She had a gift for tone, figuring out the difference between assertive and arrogant. She made us look good, even when we didn't deserve to. We made good money. More than good. Bonuses that made people go silent when they saw the checks. Deals that came with stock options and weekend retreats in Aspen. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. So did Julia. She wore it well, tailored dresses, Italian leather heels, perfume that made people turn their heads when she walked into a room. She looked like someone who belonged to the world we worked our way into. Our home reflected that too. The kind of place where you walked barefoot on heated floors and forgot what old furniture felt like. We hosted dinners that looked like magazine spreads. Caterers. Custom place cards. Real crystal. Julia loved that stuff. She said it made people feel seen. Sometimes I'd find her in the kitchen after everyone left, barefoot with a glass of wine, humming to herself while wiping down spotless counters. That was the version of her I liked best, the one no one else saw. Calm. Content. Still my girl from the front desk, even if we lived 100 miles above that life now. We didn't fight much. Maybe once or twice a year, and it never lasted. We had rules. We didn't bring up old wounds. We never raised our voices in front of anyone. And we never made scenes in public. It was understood, what we built was bigger than one argument. People envied us. I heard it. From colleagues. From friends. From people who smiled at us too tightly at fundraisers. You two have it figured out, they'd say. You make it look easy. We did. And for a while, it felt like it was easy. Because we'd done it together, from the ground up. From instant ramen to private chefs. From borrowed furniture to custom woodwork. From a cramped studio apartment to a skyline view you couldn't put a price on. Every time I looked at Julia, I didn't just see my wife. I saw my co-architect. My partner. Julia never chased attention, but it found her anyway. She had a way of turning a room without trying. It wasn't just her looks, though those certainly helped, tall, graceful, the kind of beauty that made people pause mid-sentence. It was her presence. Calm, confident, never rushed. She didn't speak to impress people, she spoke to understand them. And people remembered her for that. We were invited everywhere. Galas, launch parties, private dinners hosted by venture firms that liked their circles small. Julia was always by my side, dressed sharp, quick with a laugh, knowing exactly when to speak and when to observe. I saw more business get done in 3 of her well-timed questions than in 10 of my presentations. But she didn't care about the flash. What Julia loved most was the foundation of it all, what we built. She kept every signed contract in a leather binder in the study. Not because she needed to, but because it reminded her how far we'd come. Every time I'd land a new client, she'd toast it at dinner. Another one, she'd say, lifting her glass. Still not impressed, she'd tease, and then smile like she couldn't be prouder. We talked often, about where we started, where we were going, what kind of life we wanted to live. No kids yet. Not because we didn't want them, but because we weren't in a rush. Julia said she wanted to wait until the business ran itself, until we had more time to just be. I agreed. Why force something when everything else felt so perfectly timed? She brought balance to my intensity. I was the one who read contracts at midnight and answered emails during dinner. She reminded me to stop. To breathe. To celebrate. What's the point of winning, she said once, if we don't enjoy it? She made our house feel like more than a status symbol. Every piece of furniture had a story. Every light fixture, every rug, every candle had her touch on it. I'd come home late some nights and find her rearranging books on the shelf, humming to herself, barefoot with a glass of wine. That's what home felt like to me. Her, in the space we made together. The business kept growing. We took on international clients. Expanded the team. Brought on an executive board. I started speaking at conferences, and Julia came with me when she could. Afterward, she'd give me notes, gentle, but sharp. Don't look at the slides so much. You sound smarter when you don't try as hard. She was always right. On weekends, we'd take short getaways. Just the two of us. No phones. No laptops. Wine country. Beach towns. Places where the world moved slower and no one cared about last names. We'd talk for hours over dinner, laughing about old stories, dreaming up new ones. It felt like we were always planning something, but in the best way. It's rare, I think, to build a life with someone and still like them after all the noise settles. But I liked Julia. Not just as my wife, but as a person. My teammate. My partner in ambition, in peace, in everything. We didn't just survive the climb. We enjoyed the view together. By the time we hit year 7, we had everything we used to dream about, only now, it felt normal. We had our morning routines down to muscle memory. I was up first, always, usually by 5:30. Coffee, inbox, quick run-through of the day's schedule. Julia followed by 6. She never used an alarm. She didn't need one. Her body just knew. She had a slower start, tea, yoga, music playing low from the kitchen speakers. I'd be halfway into my second email thread by the time she came into the living room in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, kissing my cheek as she passed. It was those little things, habits so ingrained they felt like air, that made it all feel real. Julia had started consulting a bit on the side, nothing heavy. A few lifestyle brands, a design startup run by a former client's daughter. They came to her for taste, mostly. She helped with brand strategy, tone, identity. I remember telling her once, "You don't pitch. You translate." It was true. She didn't sell ideas, she made people believe in their own. She liked that kind of work. Creative, but clean. Her calendar stayed full but not chaotic. She set her own hours, picked her clients. When we'd go out to dinner, she'd share little stories about her projects. I liked listening. She had a way of seeing behind the surface of people, what they actually wanted, what they were afraid to ask for. At the office, things kept moving. We were profitable, scaling smart, staying lean where it counted. I still handled most of the big clients myself, kept my name on the major proposals, sat in on every final meeting. Not because I didn't trust the team, I did, but because that's what they expected. My face. My handshake. My sign-off. I had a reputation for being direct. No wasted time. No bloat. My team understood the standards. Julia used to joke that if I ever stopped running the company, the whole floor would forget how to breathe. I told her she wasn't wrong. We threw a party that fall, something big to celebrate a record quarter. Catered rooftop event, black tie, a jazz quartet. I gave a short toast. Thanked the team. Thanked Julia. I remember the way she looked that night, black silk dress, hair pinned up, eyes glowing. When I said her name, everyone turned to her and clapped, and she laughed like it embarrassed her. On the ride home, I told her she was the best thing I'd ever built. She rolled her eyes, but I could tell she liked hearing it. We had plenty of nights like that. Nights where the money didn't matter, where the press and the profiles and the praise all faded out and it was just us. Two people who got out of the grind and built something real together. Sometimes we'd walk around the house late at night, barefoot, wine in hand, talking about adding a guest house or converting the lower level into a studio. Not because we needed it. Just because it was fun to imagine. Julia liked to dream out loud. And I liked listening to her. Our life didn't feel lucky. It felt earned. If there was a secret to how well we worked, it was that. We never waited for something better. We built it. Together. It was during Q2 planning when I noticed something I couldn't name. Nothing dramatic. No scenes. Just the tiniest hitch in the rhythm Julia and I had always moved in. It started with scheduling. We kept a shared calendar. Not because we needed to track each other, just because our lives were packed, and this made everything easier. Dinners, fundraisers, board meetings, charity auctions, color-coded and clean. But lately, Julia had been blocking off time without labeling it. 3-hour windows, marked only as busy. Sometimes midday. Sometimes just as I was heading back from meetings. When I asked, she said it was last-minute client work. Brand audit stuff, she waved it off. Not worth putting down in detail. And maybe it wasn't. She was doing more creative consulting than ever. She'd even turned down a full-time offer from a luxury interiors firm. I like being free, she told me. No boardrooms, no approval chains. I didn't push. She had her pace. I respected it. But the unknown pockets of time lingered in the back of my mind longer than they used to. At home, nothing had changed on the surface. She was still sharp, still warm, still Julia. She made dinner reservations. She asked about my meetings. She curled up next to me on the couch with a glass of red and her feet in my lap. But I started to catch little pauses in our conversations. Like her eyes were elsewhere. Not distracted, exactly, just preoccupied. A beat slower to respond. A laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'd be telling her a story about the office, and halfway through, I'd realize she wasn't really listening. Everything good? I asked one night after she'd gone quiet mid-sentence. She blinked. Yeah. Just tired. I've been staring at my screen all day. Reasonable. Believable. And maybe true. Still, I watched her more closely after that. Then there was the office. Julia had always been welcome there. Everyone knew that. She'd stop by unannounced all the time, drop off lunch, say hi to the team, sit in on brainstorming sessions when I asked for her input. She had a lightness about her that balanced the firm's intensity. People liked having her around. So did I. But over the last few weeks, I noticed she'd been stopping by more often, and staying longer. Just working here for a bit, she said one afternoon, setting up in one of the lounge nooks. Wi-Fi's faster than the house. Plus, I miss this place. It made sense. And I liked seeing her. It reminded me of our early days, her reading drafts over my shoulder, helping me with wording, catching mistakes no one else saw. Still, it felt different. She didn't sit next to me anymore. She perched in other parts of the office, the common room, the library nook, sometimes even the wellness space we barely used. When I'd go over to say hi, I'd catch her flipping her screen shut. Not in a dramatic way. Just casually, too casually. Maybe she was working on something private. I respected that. But it scratched at something I couldn't shake. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't even distrust. It was the sense that, somewhere between client meetings and curated dinners, I'd stopped seeing the full picture. And I wasn't sure when that had happened. The funny thing is, I probably wouldn't have noticed anything if life hadn't slowed down for just a moment. A rare, quiet week. No travel. No late-night calls. No pitch deck stacked on my desk by morning. Just a stretch of days where I could breathe, really breathe, and look around at the world I was moving through. And that's when I realized, Julia had started moving just slightly ahead of me. She was dressing up more, even on days she claimed she wasn't meeting anyone. She always dressed well, but lately, it was curated. Thoughtful in a way that felt prepared. Full makeup for a few errands, heels instead of flats to grab coffee with a client. Nothing extreme, nothing to question outright. Just deliberate. She changed perfumes. I noticed that right away. Julia had worn the same scent for 5 years. Clean, citrusy, sharp. One morning she leaned in to kiss me and I caught something different. Softer. Warmer. Something floral that lingered long after she left the room. I asked if it was new. She said, just something I've had in the drawer. Felt like switching it up. Okay. People change things. No reason to assume anything. Still, the feeling followed me. The next day at the office, she was already there when I arrived. I found her in the shared space outside my corner office, working from the low sofa with her laptop angled slightly away from the hallway. She looked up, surprised, almost too surprised, and smiled. "Didn't expect you in this early." "Needed a head start," I said, setting down my briefcase. "What are you working on?" She lifted her eyes just a little too slow. "Brand stuff. I'm meeting a guy from a tech firm later, trying to prep some talking points." I nodded. She didn't offer to show me anything. I didn't ask. We went about our day. But from my office, I could see her through the glass. That's the thing about glass, people forget it works both ways. She wasn't just working. She was talking. Whispering. Not on the phone, but in low conversations with two of my junior associates, Kyle and Evan. Young guys. Smart, eager. Too green to know how to sit still around someone like Julia. I'd seen them fumble over compliments before when she walked through the building. That wasn't new. What was new was the closeness. One leaned over her shoulder a little too far. The other laughed too loud at something she said. It wasn't the actions themselves, it was the posture. Relaxed in a way that felt personal. Familiar. She caught me watching once. She smiled. Held it. Then went back to typing. When I walked past a few minutes later, she'd already moved to another part of the floor. Alone again. Headphones in. Casual. Like nothing had happened. And maybe nothing had. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not in a dramatic way. Not in any way I could point to on a timeline. It was just the smallest adjustment. Like the furniture had been moved half an inch in the night. Barely enough to notice. But more than enough to trip over if you weren't looking. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel restful. It's not the peaceful, end-of-day quiet you settle into after too many emails and too much traffic. It's the other kind, the kind that hums underneath everything, low and steady, like a refrigerator you didn't realize was buzzing until it turns off and the room finally feels still. That was the silence between Julia and me lately. Everything on the surface held. She still smiled. Still kissed me goodnight. Still leaned against my shoulder when we watched something on the couch, commenting on the costume design like she always did. But it was as if her words were being measured before they left her mouth. Like there was a script behind her eyes, and I didn't have a copy. She was in the office more than usual that week. Said she liked the energy, the design of the space, the faster Wi-Fi. "I get more done there than I do at home," she told me, as she packed her laptop bag with quiet precision. I nodded. Why would I question it? She knew everyone. People liked having her around. She was elegant without being intimidating. Warm without being intrusive. And maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was reading too much into a slight pause before answering or the way she glanced over her shoulder just a second too late when I walked in. But it stuck. The whole building started to feel different. Or maybe it was just me. She had taken to working in the corners of the office we didn't use much. Little seating areas meant for casual brainstorming, comfortable, relaxed. I'd walk by sometimes, and she'd be there, tucked in with her headphones on, laptop open, notebook beside her. She always smiled when she saw me. Waved. Lifted her coffee like a salute. Everything exactly as it should be. And yet. Once, I stepped away from a meeting to grab a document from my office. I passed one of those corners and saw her quickly close her notebook. Not slam it shut. Not guiltily. Just, quickly. As if reflex had beaten thought. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. That night at home, she hummed while she made dinner. She danced a little in the kitchen, the way she used to. We had wine. We laughed. Everything felt right again. Too right. Almost rehearsed. She went to bed early, claiming a headache. I stayed up, pacing the hallway for no reason I could explain. Not thinking. Just listening. To what, I still don't know. The next morning, I stood in the office early, before anyone else arrived. Coffee in hand, tie half done, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows that once made me feel powerful. The city below didn't look different. The sun rose the same way it always did, gold against glass and steel. But I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Out of place. Not in my company. Not in my marriage. But in a strange emotional no man's land, where you suspect something's wrong and still wake up hoping it isn't. There was no name for it yet. No action to point to. Just the growing sense that something wasn't being said. And maybe I was afraid to find out what it was. The morning started like any other. I was scheduled to meet with a legal team downtown to finalize a contract with a client from Singapore. Julia had already left, early, even for her, and texted that she'd be working from the office again. Might be there late, she added. Don't wait up if you finish before me. I texted back a thumbs up. Nothing else. We'd gotten casual like that, quick replies, shorthand affection. I wasn't in the mood for small talk anyway. My head was too full of clauses and signatures and timelines. The meeting ran long. Longer than expected. It was past 2 when I finally stepped outside the conference room, my suit jacket slung over my shoulder, my assistant trailing behind me with her tablet and a list of things to follow up on. That's when I realized I'd left the preliminary documents for the new client back at my office. A folder I needed. Not urgent, but important, and I didn't want it sitting around until Monday. I told my assistant to take the rest of the day off and headed back to my building alone. Traffic was light. Weather clean. My thoughts were on the next week's rollout, how I'd explain the new pricing model to the board, how Julia had seemed a little more energetic lately, less tired, more, something. I still couldn't name it. When I got to the office, the floor was quiet. Most of the team was off-site. Friday afternoons were like that, flexible schedules, lighter loads. I stepped out of the elevator, badge in hand, and headed toward my corner suite. I didn't expect to see anyone. Which is why the sound stopped me. Laughter. Soft. Muffled. Close. It came from the lounge across the hall, the one with the low couches and the frosted glass divider that caught just enough reflection if the light hit right. I turned. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Curiosity. The door was half closed. Not locked. Not even latched. I walked to it. And there she was. Julia. With her back turned to me. Leaning in close. Laughing. And not just with one of them. 2 of them. 2 of my employees. Sitting far too close. One with his hand on her knee. The other whispering something that made her tilt her head back and smile in that way I used to think belonged to me. There was nothing professional about it. Nothing respectful. Nothing even remotely subtle. They didn't see me at first. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. Watching. Frozen. Not because I was shocked, but because my mind had gone completely still, like someone had turned off the part of me that normally made decisions. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't anything. I was observing. Processing. Then she turned. Saw me. And everything in her face cracked. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. The kind that comes when a lie dies too fast to hide. She stood up. Said my name. But I was already gone. I turned. I walked out. And I didn't hear a single word that followed me down the hallway. I didn't go home that night. I drove. Nowhere specific. Just far enough until the city lights felt faint in the mirror. I pulled into a parking lot outside a diner that was about to close. Ordered coffee I didn't drink. Sat there with the engine off, my phone buzzing every few minutes with her name on the screen. Call. Call. Text. Another call. I didn't read the messages. I didn't need to. Nothing she could say would undo what I saw. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated. Comfortable. Familiar. You don't laugh like that unless you've done it before. I drove back when the sky started lightening, early enough that traffic hadn't picked up. The house was still dark. I parked in the driveway but didn't go in. I sat in silence for 5 minutes, then walked around back, opened the side door, and started packing. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't throw things. I moved with precision. Her closet, emptied. Her office, cleared. I left the boxes in the entryway and sent one message. Your things are at the house. You're not. Then I drove to the office. The building was still waking up, early risers, interns, cleaners. I went straight to HR and legal. Sat down with my COO and asked him to pull the contracts on both of them, Kyle and Evan. My junior team members. The ones I paid well. The ones I mentored. By noon, they were both fired. No conversation. No final warnings. Just formal dismissal. They'd violated policy, personal conduct, abuse of company space, professional integrity. Our employee handbook spelled it out clearly: zero tolerance for inappropriate behavior on company premises. Especially with senior leadership. Especially with the founder's wife. By 2, I'd issued a company-wide memo. No names. Just a reminder of standards. And a quiet warning: we clean our house thoroughly. Then I logged into our internal business network. A private, vetted system used by top-tier firms to share recommendations, reputation flags, and informal background notes. I wrote one for each of them. Do not hire. Unprofessional. Disregarded ethical boundaries on executive premises. Involved in serious misconduct. I checked the box marked recommend against employment in any role. Then I attached a formal HR memo and pushed it live. By the end of the day, they were ghosts in the system. Julia tried calling again. Eventually, she emailed. Please don't do this. We need to talk. I messed up. I know I did. But it wasn't what you think. It didn't mean. I didn't finish reading it. I forwarded the message to my lawyer. Filed for divorce the next morning. We had a prenup. Ironclad. I wasn't going to fight over furniture or finances. I didn't want revenge in court. I wanted silence. Distance. Erasure. What she did in my office wasn't just betrayal. It was deliberate disrespect, performed on the stage I built with her by my side. And for that, she didn't deserve a conversation. She deserved an ending. You learn a lot about people when you take away what they can't control. Julia had always moved through the world like someone with an invisible shield, confident, poised, perfectly composed. It worked in every room, dinner parties, client meetings, even my boardroom. But after what happened in my office, that shield shattered. She didn't just lose her place in my life. She lost access. Access to our home, our staff, our schedule, our network. And, most importantly, our name. The thing people don't understand about the upper tier of business is that reputation isn't a suggestion, it's currency. It buys you rooms, trust, leverage. And when you lose it, you don't get to bargain. You vanish. Julia didn't work for my company, but her name was connected to mine in every circle that mattered. She'd spoken at events under our brand. Been listed on internal documentation as a guest consultant. Shared stages with me during panel weekends. Her presence had been a professional asset, for both of us. So I made sure that changed. First, I pulled every trace of her name from the company site. Her bio, her photo from the holiday gala, even the minor client she once helped pitch. Gone. Scrubbed. Then I made a quiet call to the publicist we kept on retainer. From this point forward, I said, if her name comes up in anything associated with the firm, decline comment. Deny collaboration. Distance us entirely. Understood, they said. Next came the whispers. I didn't have to shout. I just had to speak where it counted. Over lunch with 2 venture partners. Personal situation. She stepped outside the marriage. In the building, no less. Hard to ignore. At a private cocktail event with a lifestyle PR lead. I wouldn't recommend her for any campaigns right now. Things are unstable. To a creative director she used to work with on the side. She's talented, but not exactly discreet. Just thought you should know. I never made threats. I never lied. I just let the truth travel. And it did. In our world, all it takes is a shift in tone, a slightly raised eyebrow, and doors don't open the same way anymore. She emailed me twice more. Both messages longer. Softer. The second one included the words, please, and mistake, and, you and I built everything together. I didn't respond. Because what we built had rules. Boundaries. Trust as its foundation. She didn't just crack that foundation, she bulldozed it, then tried to stand in the ruins with a smile and ask for forgiveness. She thought I'd protect her. She was wrong. I didn't scream. I didn't post. I didn't destroy her financially. But I took away the one thing that mattered in her world, credibility. And I didn't have to lift a finger to do it. Just the truth. Told calmly. Repeated quietly. Believed instantly. I haven't seen her since. She didn't come to the house again. Didn't try to corner me at an event. Didn't send flowers or show up, by accident, at places we used to visit together. Maybe she knew there was no soft entry left. That the version of me who would have once listened, once paused, once held the door even halfway open, was gone. The divorce processed quickly. There wasn't much to untangle. Our prenup made everything clean. She got what she was owed. Nothing more. I wasn't interested in vengeance through court filings. That wasn't the kind of revenge I cared about. The house is mine now. And it's quiet. Not in the way it was when everything felt like it was slipping. That silence had weight. This one doesn't. This silence feels earned. Sharp, but not cruel. Still. Honest. I had the space redesigned. Not fully, just enough. Changed the artwork. Got rid of the table we used to host dinners at. Replaced the rug she insisted on with one I actually liked. The kitchen still smells like her sometimes when I open the spice cabinet. That will fade. The company's stable. Stronger, even. The team's more focused. I've restructured a few departments. Hired fresh talent. Set a tone, what we tolerate, what we don't. Culture isn't just words on a poster in the hallway, it's what you protect when no one's watching. People still ask about her, occasionally. The ones who don't know. How's Julia, or haven't seen your wife in a while. I just say, we parted ways, and leave it there. The ones who matter already know. The ones who don't need to. I'm not angry anymore. That was a phase. Necessary. Clarifying. But now. I feel clean. She made her choice. And not just once. Not in one moment. It was the choice behind every message, every meetup, every glance shared when she thought no one else was looking. A slow betrayal. The kind that grows in plain sight when you stop asking questions. I've had time to think about it. And here's what I know. There's no such thing as a one-time mistake when comfort is involved. Whatever she was getting from them, attention, excitement, control, it was worth more to her than the life we built. The office. The team. The years. The vows. Me. That used to hurt. Now it just tells me who she was. Who she is. And I'm grateful I saw it before I gave her another year. Before kids. Before a deeper knot that would have taken longer to cut clean. She thought I'd break. She thought I'd protect the image. She forgot I built the whole thing. And now, she's not even a footnote. I walk into my office every morning, past the place where it happened, and I don't feel a thing. Not rage. Not regret. Just the clarity that comes from knowing exactly where your line is, and what you'll do when someone crosses it. She's out there somewhere, trying to repair what she shattered. I'm here. Still standing. And I don't owe her anything, not even my memory.